Let's go then. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to cover some best practices for optimizing your e-com website. And we're going to talk about how you can increase conversion, lower your drop-off by using well-founded insights from our design team and our online growth team. And we're of course, going to use examples of how you can use relevant components in the Viskan CMS, of course. My name is Carl Norin, and I'm head of design and implementation here at Viskan. So let's jump right into it. We have three areas to focus on today. The first, we're going to talk about the start page, of course, what you can do there. And then we're going to move on to the product list page, where you basically have your product grids. And finally, we're going to talk about the product detail page and things you can do there. So the start page. We're going to talk about content above fold. That's basically talking about how you're positioning your content and where on your start page the content ends up. And we're also going to talk about the hero image, how to work with that component, links, buttons, and call to action text. What are the good practices, things you can think about there. And we're going to end the start page with talk a little bit about how you can use popular categories and top lists and what options you have in the CMS. So, what do we mean with above fold? Well, it's a term that was basically something that came up for newspapers that was folded in half. So when the newspapers were put in newsstands, the upper half basically was the only thing that you could see. And the newspapers had to think about to putting the most important information at the top of the newspaper. Today, however, on any device, the above fold part is basically where the browser window starts and ends. So it's very important to think about the content you put there, and it's also important to indicate to your visitors that there is more coming below. So you need to encourage your visitors to scroll on your page. And why is this important then? Well, we can see in this image, it's called a heat map image, where we can actually measure how far your users scroll on any page on your website. And in the red area is basically where most end up. And the further down you go, the colder the color gets. So basically, this is an image of Viskan start page, which is fairly good. But if it were even worse, you would see that the color would be even darker blue. And the more darker the color gets, means that the interest decreases significantly further down on the page. And that shows you how important it is to actually put the most important information at the top of your page. So we have a little thing in the Viskan CMS that's called the two top components. So we can actually, if you know that you have a long start page, you can actually add this component to your page. So if your users do scroll, we'll give them a fast way to the top again. It's called a to top component, and you place it in the header or the footer. You find that component in the components library under navigation, and you can set it to appear in a few pixels down. The further you scroll, the component will end up wherever you want to place it. I think it's by default is going to be on the right bottom side of the window. But it's a good component to use when you know you have a long start page. We're also going to talk about the hero image, of course, the thing that most of you put at the very top of your start pages. The component most of you use is the component called custom content. And we're going to talk about the image size here and what you can do when it comes to quality, what we can do when thinking about page speed. And it's very important to think about these things. So let's look at the settings of this component. So firstly, the settings that are available for you is firstly choose an image that fits the device. So you can choose an image in this component, one that fits the mobile device and one that fits the desktop device. And you even have the third option to actually choose an image that fits the tablet device. And then you have the red squares where we talk about scaling. So our Viskan Media Server can deliver out images in different sizes. And you have a few options available there. So you need to think about the quality that you actually set these on. So for a mobile device, you would basically set a lower image because you don't have the screen resolutions. And there's also an option for every image that you know is at the top of a page. And that's called lazy loading. Well, lazy loading images is a technique to load images on a web page when they are required. But I mean, the images that you have on top of your start pages, we already know they need to be available at first load. So this setting is something that you need to turn off for all images that are above fold. And that will increase the page speed on your pages. And if you want a more in-depth tutorial on how to work with the custom content component, there is actually a tutorial right now available on our support site. So I urge you to take a look at that one. But think about the scalings, the aspect ratios of your images. If it's a mobile device, it's typically going to be a more image that is higher. And if it's a desktop device, it's going to be a wider image. And also leave space for anything that comes below that image, especially in mobile devices. So how do we work with linking things here, especially on this component? The general way to go here is to link everything that you think your customer might want to click on. So you link the image, that's easy to forget, of course, and also use good call to action texts. A few examples that would be basically discover our beans here, because our demo site is themed around coffee, of course. How to best brew your coffee, or browse our coffee-inspired swag, stuff like that. Do not use words like buy now, read more, or click here. And also make sure when you link anything on your content that it ends up where the user expect themselves to end up. So link the content to the correct site, pages. So just a reminder of the components we have available for linking things. So of course, the custom content component, which I've already talked about. You have the link field in that component. That will basically link the image. And of course, the button. It's easy to forget. Link your buttons. When using a normal image, there's actually a link field in that component settings window as well. You have to scroll down a bit, but you can link any image. And of course, the text component. You can select any text in your text component and press the link button to link to anything you want in your texts. And it can be several links in a large chunk of text. So just a reminder there to use those components. Moving on to product popular categories and top lists. So we want to help the customers with easy paths to important categories. This increases conversion, we know this. And we want you to put that content relatively high on the start page. So you have your start hero image, popular categories, and then you have the top lists. But basically, we know that those three parts should be relatively high or at the top of your pages. So how can we work with popular categories and top lists? Well, if you want to automate the work, we have a third-party solution for that in the Viskan platform with our partner Hello Retail. So you can use the source of this article slider here to actually work with Hello Retail recommendations. And if you want more detail on how this works, you can stay tuned for a webinar after the summer that we are going to have together with Hello Retail. I don't know about the date yet, but we are going to have one with them at least. So that's one way of automating top lists and have it present a smarter range of products. But of course, we can also do this manually. You have knowledge, of course, of your products, so you can actually create these lists yourselves. By using the same component, but setting the source to a category instead, you can actually create these top lists yourself. So just create a category in the back office and populate that category products, and then point to this category in this component. It's a more manual way of doing it, but it's a very good way of creating your own top lists in different ways. So I urge you to take a look at one of these options. So the main takeaways from the start page: important content at the top. Put your most important content at the top of the page. You want to make sure that you expose your best products to all potential customers, of course. And make sure everything is linked. You want to make sure that everything your customer tries to click on is linked. Leading your customers toward a purchasing decision is vital here, of course. And show your visitors that there's more to see below. Make sure you provide a teaser what more you have to show, and make sure you show it above the fold. Take all devices into account, of course. So then moving on to the product list page, we are again going to cover the hero image here. We are going to talk about headings and texts on these pages. How can we work with filters and grouping filters? Talk a little bit about blurbs, which is basically hero images inside the product grids. We are going to talk about presenting the visitors with different amounts of grid columns. And of course, should you use infinite scroll? Yes or no? So again, let's talk about the hero image here on the product list page. It is a good idea to use an image here. We have not so much space in the mobile device, of course, but if you use an image here, make sure it is an image that where the product is in use in its own context. Do not use a product image itself. It's better to have an environmental image where it's actually someone holding the product or wearing the product or something like that. And that will invite to more purchase and what's coming below, of course. Do not make it too big. Keep it above the fold, but maybe half of the screen. It's very important here to show that we are actually viewing products. So my urge is to actually use the same approach as the hero image on the start page. Think about the above fold, think about scalings, and turn off the lazy load, of course. We know this resource is going to be loaded at when you visit the page. Next up, of course, is using headings and texts on these categories. Most of you do, and it's a good idea in terms of SEO, of course. Use the text component in this case. Most of you have presets already defined in the CMS, which is basically your graphical profile and your typography and stuff like that. So use the text component, write your text, your headings, and then use the headlines you have, which is the H1 that is selected here. It's going to give you the right element in terms of SEO, of course. Sometimes, of course, you are going to have quite a large chunk of text on these categories, and we have components to handle that as well, of course. So for larger text, I would urge you to use the read toggler component. The read toggler component, basically, you add a text to it, and then say after a certain amount of characters, there's a read more button. And when you press the read more button, you will see the entire text. And of course, when you have toggled that text out, there is also a read less button, so you can close it again. And this component is very effective for saving space in a mobile device, even though you have a long text on your categories. You could also put these texts at the bottom of the page, That's better than nothing, of course. But if you use that approach and also use infinite scroll, that may have an impact. And I will get back to that shortly. And then we have filters and grouping of filters. So the purpose of filters is to make it easy for your customers to find your products. And one way of doing that, I will take an example here, of course, is by grouping your colors. So this is a scenario that a few of you might have. You have different products in different shades of red. And we want to group them as one group. And you can do that actually quite easily. So to group your colors, you can go into the back office and create a new color. So this is going to be a generic color for every red shade. I just called it red here. And the part that is important here is the red square here, because by checking that checkbox, you actually say that this color is going to act as a group for all shades of red. And then you go ahead and create all your shades of red. I have created a shade of red here called crimson. And I actually, in the pop-up window, you can see that I have actually checked that this shade of red now belongs to the group of red. And then you move on to the CMS. And you go into settings, site settings, and the third tab called articles. And there's a checkbox there called load product filter colors as a group. So we are actually telling the system to, okay, now I want the groups for filters. So you check that option and you save and you publish. And the end result of that will be that you now get one group for all those shades of red. So whenever the user presses red, you get all the products with different colors of red in the product grid. And you can do that for color names as well. If you have color names like I have here in the image, that orange, we call that apricot. We have a purple that we call lavender, and raspberry for the pink. You could actually create groups for that as well, because you don't want to rename your colors. If you have black 55 or anything else that might confuse the user, just create a group for that color and add those shades to that or names to that group. And then you would be presented with a much more clear choice here, what we mean. Of course, we have the color swatches here or the circles, but in general, I think it would be a good idea to group your colors. And then we have blurbs, which is basically the hero images you use on your start page, but we put them sometimes inside the product grids. So it's just like a hero image. And these can be inserted in the product grids and is very effective for attracting users to a specific offer or a product. Again, we're using the custom content component here. And we can control here on each device how much of the size in the grid it's going to take up. So we have a grid here in mobile that is 2 by 2. And we basically say that this blurb is going to take up 2 columns and 2 rows. So the space of this blurb will basically be 4 products. And it's a great way of pushing for these offers you might have. And you can, of course, place these blurbs further down in the grid, even on pages below. So you can, let's say on page 3 or 4, you can have these come up again whenever you have pressed the load more button, or if you have infinite scroll, they will come a few pages down. So a good way of using these custom content blurbs in your product grids. And of course, all other settings here are the same as on the start page. The entire image is linked, of course. So then moving on to the grid columns. We know that using 2 columns on mobile is the best approach. We expose more products faster for the visitors. It's also better above fold here because we can see almost 4 products instead of just 1. And if you want to give the user a choice here, we actually have a component for that called the column. Let's see here. Can't actually see what it's called. Column size. And you can drop that on your page and give the users a choice. So you can start that on 2 columns and give the option for the users to actually press that and see 1 column. When using 1 column, of course, you will end up scrolling too much. So you have to choose the way you want to go here. But we have the components for you to use if you want to give them the choice. And then we, of course, have the infinite scroll question. So basically, there is no right or wrong here. It might come down to how many products you have. So by using infinite scroll, we know that you deprive the user of the possibility to reach the footer, especially if you have a large amount of products. So for whatever reason, they might end up thinking, I need to think about or read the terms and conditions, or I need to contact you or anything. Then we deprive them from that until they've reached actually the bottom of the products grid. So that would be one way of thinking about it. Another thing is that it might be hard to find a specific product, again, if you've scrolled really far and want to go back to a situation where you find something that you found interesting. So yeah, think about those when you choose which option you want to go with here. The settings can be changed, of course, in the articles component. The pagination type you have available is, of course, infinite scroll. And then you have pagination. That's the original one where you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, and you can press those buttons. And the one that most of you, I think, uses now is the load more and previous. So you will have a button at the bottom of the page, and if you are a few pages down, you will have a button at the top of the page as well. So you can load in the previous products, of course. And if you just want to use the grid as a grid, then you have the none, of course, option. And I know many of you have asked before, in terms of loading times, none of these matters. Loading times does not have an effect whichever option you choose here, but rather how many products you load at a time, at any given time. So that would be the slider or above this drop down here. That would have an impact on loading times, but not in which way we load in the products. So main takeaways from the product list page. Heading and text on every category is very important. Make sure to have heading and text on category pages. This is vital for SEO purposes. Use 2 columns in your product grid. With more products visible in the product grid, your content will look richer, of course. And really think about giving the visitors a teaser that there is more products to see. This will, of course, reduce the drop-off. And provide easy-to-use filter functionality. Clear and relevant filtering functionality is great for the user experience. Help your customers understand how to find their way around your product library. Last but not least, let's talk about the product detail page. Again, think about what we can do when we talk about above fold, what to place there. How can we work with the product information and the properties your products have? How do we handle products with large amount of attributes? A quick reminder about breadcrumbs, of course, and how we can work with related products and last view products. Okay, so just as important as the start page is your product detail page. It's a landing page for your products. And what do we then place above fold here? Well, we know that you need to have your media at the top. Breadcrumbs, your product name, your price, your variants, and the add to cart button. You can also push for your unique selling points. In this case here, I have those in the header, but they can be pushed towards, they can help push towards a purchase, so they need to be higher on the page. But I would say these listed here are the most important ones. Now, if you're a brand company, this might not really, you can deviate from this a bit, because your customer knows your brand and they know your products. So you might have some free way here to think about this. Maybe present your product images even larger and things like that. But in general, if you want to sell more, then these are the things you need to think about having above fold. There are things to think about here. If you have larger images, if you have a large amount of attributes and stuff like that, you can use the add to cart button as a sticky thing to the bottom of your window. But in general, this is what you need to think about. So the product information then, put the in-depth product information below the fold, and considering structuring that information in a neatly way, and especially when there's a lot of it. And one way of doing that, you can see on the image to the right, that we've actually put the information in these togglers where you can open and close them. And in this case, we've actually opened the product description, but closed the properties. And the component you use for that is the toggler component. And it's a good idea to use that and letting the customers open and close the information they want to see. Now you have a few options here, of course. You can open it by default, which I did with the product description. It's going to save space because we do know that there's important information below. I'm going to talk about that in the next slides. But you can also, if you are using a toggler for your product properties, there is also an option to check here that you can hide the entire toggler if you don't have any data in it. So you have, let's say you have a toggler on your page and you put in your product property for a specific property in that toggler. For every product you visit that doesn't have that property, the entire toggler is not going to be visible. So you don't have to have an empty one there just for one type of properties for your products. So a good way of thinking around structuring your properties. So use the toggler, especially in mobile devices. And then we have the issue of large amount of attributes. So when you have products with large amount of attributes, I urge you to consider using the drop-down list instead. We know by fact from studies that have been done that by using buttons, we know that the customers generally go faster to purchases. But whenever you have large amount of attributes, you're going to push the add to cart button below the fold. And then it's a better idea to actually have the drop-down list instead. So it really depends on how many attributes you have, because we need to keep it clean above the fold and not push anything down. You have a few different options, of course, in the attribute component. You can choose between color boxes, a drop-down. The color boxes are basically the color swatches you have entered for your colors. The drop-down, which you just saw on the previous page, you also have images. Images are good when maybe you have some type of fabric or something on your products. Then that would be a good way of presenting that option. And of course, by just name, if you want to. So the attribute component has a few different display options here. Again, touching on breadcrumbs, just a reminder to use breadcrumbs on the product detail page. It gives the users a secondary means of navigation, and that's very important. It can help them navigate through a hierarchy quickly and effortlessly. And of course, it's very important from an SEO perspective. So add your breadcrumbs to your product detail page is my recommendation. And then we're going to talk a little bit about related products or last viewed products. Make use of these. We know they can attract upselling and more purchase. It's a good way of reminding a user or a visitor that they've recently viewed a product and might urge them to actually add that to the cart. You can use two different components here. or the two main components for presenting related products and last view. We have one component called related. It works with relations in the back office. So you actually put it on, in this case, we've put it on matching products. So that could be something like pants matching a shirt, or if the model has a tie or a shoes or a belt or something like that, we can actually put those matching things in and put that product slider below. Now, for configuring relations in this way, I urge you to talk to your customer manager for help with that. If you want to go with the other option by using the article slider, you can, of course, set it to source recent views, just to give the user that option that they can see everything that they've just visited. So you would use the article slider for that and just set it to recent views. And that's going to end up with those products, of course. So the main takeaways from the product detail page: important content at the top. Again, of course, put the most important and relevant information high up on the product page. Evaluate what the customer needs and wants to know, and or for making a buying decision, and put that information high up. Add to cart should always be above the fold, of course. Structure your product information neatly. Take into account what the customer actually needs to see above the fold, and structure the rest neatly beneath the fold. It's important that all information is easy to access and understand, even if you think it's less important, of course. Related and recently viewed products, upsell and cross-sell as much as you can without being too pushy, of course. Think about formulating the offer to make it fit your brand and your customer's mindset. Related and recently viewed products will have a positive impact on your average order value over time. So, yeah, that's basically it we have for today, these 3 pages. And as Adam said, we will, of course, post this webinar on our support site for those who can join today and your colleagues. So I urge you to go in there and have a look when it's up there. And we can move on to questions.
Yeah, feel free to ask questions on any of these topics in the chat. We haven't had any questions along the way, but I hope we can get something at least. Meanwhile, hold out for the Hello Retail webinar. We've had a few examples here with recommendations in 2 different places and components. We will have that webinar in September, sometime in September. We haven't decided on the date, but we've come close on decided on an agenda. So that will come then, and that will be a bit about how to work with recommendations without having to work with cookies. Which is, yeah, well, the cookie death is a kind of a big deal in terms of e-commerce business and recommendations. It's a hot topic these days with Google Analytics being shut down and Google Analytics 4 taking over more and more. So hold out for that. It doesn't seem like we have any questions, Carl. So I think we can just crystal clear, yeah. And if you think of something afterwards, don't hesitate to reach out to the design team or your customer manager, and we'll make sure to help you out that way.
Yeah, so we have an email address if you want to talk about design or have questions. That's design@viskan.com. And one of us will take care of that email, of course. Or you can just go through your customer manager.
Perfect. All right, then. The recording will be sent to you guys via email, and you will always be able to find it in a couple of days at support.viskan.com.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for today.
Thank you, everyone.